Hey everyone, this is Coach Tall Guy. I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to talk about transitioning, okay? So in all soccer practices, you're going to transition from one activity to another, and we want to be able to transition effectively. So what I mean by being effective is we want to make sure that when you go from one activity to another activity that it's done quickly, all right, that the kids are focused and that they're engaged. And I'm gonna give you some tips and tricks on how to get those kids focused so that your transition time is less. And when your transition time is smaller, that means the players have more time on the ball, they're more engaged, and they're gonna become better soccer players. So when you're thinking about transitioning, the first thing you have to do is think about your practice plan. Have you taken steps where your practice plan is organized and there isn't a ton of moving pieces to it? So what I mean by those moving pieces is, are you constantly having to reset up cones? Okay. Are your activities just so complicated that you're going to end up having to explain them for a long period of time? So that's going to increase your transitioning time. If you have too complicated activities, too much setup, your transition time has gotten to be a lot bigger, which means a lot less time where the players are engaged and on the ball. So think through your practice plan. Try to have activities that are simple so that you're not spending a ton of time explaining them. Try to make sure that you're not using a ton of cones so that your setup time is less. Another thing that kills practices is when coaches send teams out, their players, to the water break, okay? They haven't done a very good job of effectively setting up the water break, so to speak. So they just tell their players to go get water, and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose, so to speak. I mean, they're spraying water on each other, people are running around the field, and this happens a lot, particularly in those younger ages, okay? So like those 4, 5, 6-year-olds and up to 7 and 8, that's downtime for them. That's a time for them to be kind of goofy. And I mean, to a certain extent we want that, but it's very frustrating for a coach when they've just now set up their next activity and the kids are all over the place on the water break. So how can we send kids to a water break effectively? One of the things I like to use is I use this clock a lot, and I'll say to the players, hey, boys, girls, we got 1 minute for water break, 1 minute. So please hustle up, hustle up. And by saying that 1 minute, it kind of engages the kids, letting them know that, we don't have a lot of time. I better just hustle and go get some water. As they're getting water, I might then say, hey, 30 more seconds. You guys got 30 more seconds. You better finish up those waters and we're going to get going. I don't want anybody to be last. And again, that little clock for them just kind of signals to them that we got to go. We got to be ready to move on. Now, from a transition piece, from one activity to another, and you want to re-engage the kids, you want to get the kids focused, okay? There are some tips and tricks that you can use to get those kids focused on you quickly. And it's going to be, again, easier at that older age groups are just more mature. But the one thing I hear as a coach is, gosh, Coach Tall Guy, it's like I'm herding cats. And those young kids, it is like herding cats, but you can do it effectively if you have some of these tips. So one of the things I love to do with players is when I have them doing an activity, I'll yell out the word freeze, okay? And when I yell out that word freeze, I'll give them a countdown, 3, 2, 1, and then I say something like eyes on me, all right? So I'm giving them that countdown. I'm letting them know that I want them to stop and I want their eyes on me, okay? The sooner I can get their eyes on me, then I know I have their attention. Now I know I can give the next instructions for the activity or whatever we're doing for practice. It's so important that you have their eyes on you, okay? If I want to bring them into me as a coach because I need to explain something, okay? I love this countdown method. I might say something like, all right, everybody, we got 10 seconds to get over here with Coach Tall Guy. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. And having that countdown, those kids hustle into you. And I might say something, don't be last, don't be last. In that enthusiasm, that instructions of the countdown, it just engages the kids, and then quickly they're in. And then I, again, might follow up with something, all right, everybody, eyes on me. And then I have them. I have their attention, and now I'm ready to give them the instructions. All right, another thing I use, if I'm particularly in big groups, I might yell, freeze. Everybody, clap 3 times if you can hear me. And I hear those claps. And the reason I say clap 3 times to hear me is I would just want to, again, get their attention. I want to know that their eyes are on me, that they're focused on me, that they can hear me. I might say, all right, everybody, wave like this to me. and I'm getting their focus on me by asking them to do some nonverbal things, all right? That clap or that shake, those nonverbal things, I'm grabbing their attention. And again, I'm ready to give those next instructions to the players. Another thing I like to use is this little, and all of a sudden they stop talking, they hear you, and again, I'm grabbing their attention because they have to do that. And then you can mix it up. You might be, and it's focus, right? We're just trying to get the players to focus on you quickly so that you can give the instructions, okay? So as you go into your practices, use some of these tips, use some of these tricks. Make sure that you're always putting a timer on the water breaks, okay? So those are all gonna help you with your transition. Now, in terms of participation, okay, let's think about how our practice is set up again. Do you have a practice that just has a bunch of lines? Okay, if you got a practice with a bunch of lines, you're gonna lose those kids' attention again. And that's where the discipline issues, particularly with those young players. They don't wanna be standing around. They wanna be moving. That's why they play the game of soccer. They wanna move, they wanna be engaged. So you have to think about how your practice is set up. If you're using lines for organization, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with lines per se. It's just think through the number of people you have in the line. Think through the activity. Is it a fast activity? Is it quick? Are they gonna be doing something then quickly getting to the end of the line and then they're right back up? So for me, I like to make sure if I'm using some lines that maybe they're groups of 3. Okay, I don't want groups of more than 3 because I know they're not getting enough opportunities to move. They're not as engaged. And when they're not as engaged and not moving, I know I'm gonna have some discipline issues pop up. If I do know my team as well, I also strategically think through like who's in that line. If I know Johnny and Billy are best buddies and they're probably not gonna be able to handle standing beside each other, then I don't put them in the same line, okay? Just because I know that they're not mature enough to handle that, okay? As they get older and they might be best buds and they're at more of maybe a competitive level, they're probably pushing each other a little bit, okay? So, you know, those are things as coaches though that you wanna think through when you're organizing your practice. So to kind of sum it all up for you, the transition piece is so important. We want players engaged and we want players on the ball because they have more time to learn, and the more time they have to learn, the better soccer players are gonna be. So if you can make sure that you cut down your transition time, the greater the learning, okay? And those tips and tools I just gave you, I'll go through them again. Make sure that you're using a countdown, all right, to get the kids. Eyes on me, you want their eyes on you. Anything you can do to grab their attention, using the word freeze, giving them the little claps, things like that. The sooner you can get their focus on you, the less transition time you're gonna have because you're able to give your instructions quicker, all right? So take these into your next practice, think through it a little bit, have some fun with it, maybe come up with your own things, okay? These are just some of the tools that I use that seem to be very effective for me. I know there's a lot of other things out there as well, but just the most important takeaway is how can I cut down on that transitional time so that kids are learning. Hey, again, if you like this video, please feel free to subscribe. Take a look at some of my other videos, as again, this information is really geared towards those volunteer coaches, those coaches who are newer to the game, those coaches who work with very young age groups in particular. It's very difficult if you haven't worked with young kids. I appreciate you stopping by. This is Coach Tall Guy out.